When I discovered what my husband was hiding, my entire world collapsed. My fingers trembled as I stared at my phone screen, the security camera footage playing like a horror movie I couldn't stop watching. There, in our living room, stood Victor, my husband of 7 years, with his arms wrapped around a woman I'd never seen before. My stomach twisted into knots, bile rising in my throat. But I should start from the beginning. My name is Gabrielle. 3 weeks ago, I was just a normal 32-year-old woman living what I thought was a happy life in our suburban Charlotte home. Victor and I met in college, fell madly in love, and built a life together, brick by brick. He worked as a project manager for a construction company, while I ran my own small event planning business from home. We had routines, inside jokes, and dreams of starting a family next year. The first cracks appeared slowly. Late nights at the office, distracted conversations. The light in his eyes when he looked at me had dimmed, replaced with something distant and cold. "You okay?" I'd ask. "Just tired," he'd always reply, his gaze never quite meeting mine. When our living room security camera stopped working 3 months ago, I mentioned it to Victor repeatedly. "I'll get to it," he'd promise, but never did. After weeks of feeling increasingly unsafe, I finally called the security company myself. "All fixed, ma'am," the technician said after replacing some wiring. "Camera's back online now." I meant to tell Victor that evening, but he came home with takeout and wine, more attentive than he'd been in months. For a few precious hours, it felt like we'd recaptured something lost. The camera slipped my mind completely. 2 days later, Victor kissed my cheek and headed out. "Working late again," he murmured, keys jingling in his hand. "Don't wait up." How many nights had I spent alone, wondering what was pulling him away from me? Too many to count. That night, a strange feeling washed over me as I sat curled on our bed watching a show I couldn't focus on. Call it intuition or a sixth sense. Something felt wrong. I opened our security app to check if the garage door was closed, and froze. The living room camera feed was active, showing our front door opening. Victor walked in, checking his watch. It was 9:17 p.m. He told me he'd be working past midnight. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched him move toward the entryway, glancing back outside before opening the door wider. A woman stepped in, tall, confident, stunning. Her long dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and she wore a form-fitting dress I immediately knew cost more than my entire wardrobe. My stomach twisted into knots, bile rising in my throat. "Do you have what I asked for?" she murmured against his lips. That's when the scene shifted from heartbreaking to baffling. Instead of leading her upstairs, Victor walked to the corner of our living room. He knelt down and pulled back the edge of our area rug, revealing something I'd never seen before, a floor safe. My breath caught. 7 years of marriage, and I'd never known it existed. Victor entered a combination, opened the safe, and pulled out what looked like stacks of cash. Not a few $100s, but bundles secured with rubber bands. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. The woman's eyes widened with approval. "You've been busy." "This is just the beginning," he replied, his voice lower, harder than I'd ever heard it. He handed her one of the bundles. "Your cut so far." My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This wasn't just an affair. The hidden safe, the unexplained cash, the secret of exchange. Who was this woman? Where did that money come from? And most terrifying of all, who was the man I'd been sleeping beside for 7 years? I watched them talk for another 20 minutes, their voices too low for the camera to catch everything. But I heard enough to know that whatever they were involved in went far beyond infidelity. Words like shipment, deadline, and keeping people quiet floated up to me. When they finally left together, I sat motionless in the dark, my phone clutched in my hand, wondering if I should pack a bag and run, or dig deeper into the stranger my husband had become. What would you do if the person you trusted most turned out to be someone you never really knew? I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Victor's hands on that woman, saw him pulling cash from a safe I never knew existed. By morning, my shock had hardened into something colder, more calculated. Over breakfast, Victor acted completely normal, scrolling through his phone, complaining about traffic, kissing my forehead before heading out. The casual performance of a loving husband. I watched him through new eyes, noticing details I'd overlooked for months. "You look tired," he said, glancing up briefly. I forced a smile. "Just didn't sleep well." "Take it easy today," he replied, already turning back to his phone. When had his concern become so automatic, so empty? I studied the stranger across my kitchen table, the slight tension in his shoulders when his phone buzzed, the way he angled the screen away from me, the meticulously ironed shirt he hadn't let me launder in weeks. After he left, I sat alone at our kitchen table, trying to piece together a timeline. Victor's late nights had started about 6 months ago. First, just once a week, then twice, now almost every other day. His excuses were always vague. Project deadlines, client meetings, team issues. I'd accepted them without question because that's what trust meant in a marriage. But there were other changes too. New clothes, a different cologne, mysterious weekend work emergencies that pulled him away. Calls he'd take outside or in the bathroom with the shower running. His sudden insistence on handling all our finances when we'd always managed them together. How had I missed so many warning signs? I pulled out my laptop and checked our joint accounts. Everything seemed normal at first glance. His paychecks deposited regularly, our usual expenses. But when I dug deeper into our savings account, I noticed small withdrawals every few weeks. 500 here, 700 there. Not enough to immediately raise alarms, but substantial over time. My hands trembled. I needed to know more. That afternoon, I drove to Victor's office building and parked across the street. I'd brought him lunch here countless times over the years, knew the security guard by name. But today I stayed in my car, watching. At 1:15, Victor emerged, but instead of heading to the sandwich place down the block like he usually did, he got into his car and drove away. I followed, maintaining a safe distance, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might be sick. He drove to an upscale apartment complex 20 minutes away. The woman from the video, tall, confident, beautiful, was waiting outside. She slipped into his car and they drove to a waterfront restaurant where they spent the next hour and a half clearly enjoying each other's company. They weren't even trying to hide it. The realization crushed me. When I got home, I called Dakota. We'd been friends since college and she knew me better than anyone, sometimes better than I knew myself. "This doesn't make sense," she said, after I told her everything. "Victor's construction salary plus what you make from event planning, it's good money, but not stacks of cash in a hidden safe money." "I know," I whispered. "That's what scares me the most." "Have you confronted him?" "Not yet. I need to understand what I'm dealing with first." My voice cracked. "What if it's something dangerous, Dakota? What if knowing puts me at risk?" There was a long pause on the line. "You need to be careful, Gabs. This isn't just about catching a cheater anymore. Secret money, hidden safes, that's some serious stuff. Promise me you won't confront him until we know more." "I promise," I said, although part of me wanted to scream at Victor the moment he walked through the door. "And Gabrielle, maybe you should stay with me for a few days."
I considered it briefly, but shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. I need to be here. I need to figure this out. After we hung up, I paced our living room, staring at the corner where the safe lay hidden beneath our rug. I'd memorized the combination from watching Victor. 8, 4, 2, 3, 6. My fingers itched to open it, to see what else he was hiding. I waited until late that night. Victor texted that he was caught up at work and wouldn't be home until after midnight. The house felt unnaturally quiet as I knelt in the exact spot where he had stood with that woman. I pulled back the rug, revealing the small metal safe embedded in our hardwood floor. My hands shook as I entered the combination. 8, 4, 2, 3, 6. The lock clicked. I held my breath and pulled the door open. The cash was there, more than I'd seen on camera. I counted quickly. Over $60,000 in neat bundles. But what made my blood freeze were the other items. A handgun, its metal gleaming in the dim light. 3 burner phones. A small notebook filled with names, dates, and amounts. And the most disturbing of all, a manila envelope containing what looked like fake IDs. Different names, but Victor's face staring back at me. I flipped through the notebook with trembling fingers. Some names had check marks beside them. Others had a single word, pending. One page had a name with a large X drawn through it, the paper indented from how hard the pen had pressed. The last page contained a name I recognized, Kira Devane, followed by an address and the note, payment, 30% plus bonus. So that was her name, Kira, the woman who kissed my husband in our living room. Who was she? What was her role in whatever Victor was involved in? I carefully replaced everything exactly as I'd found it, closed the safe, and smoothed the rug back into place. My mind raced with possibilities, each more frightening than the last. Money laundering? Fraud? Something worse. I crawled into bed, wide awake, listening for Victor's key in the lock. Around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. I know you saw us. We need to talk. Alone. Meet me tomorrow, Central Park. 2 p.m. Come alone or your husband finds out you've been watching. K. My heart stopped. Kira knew about the camera. How? Had Victor told her? Was this a trap? And the most chilling question of all, what would happen to me once they knew I'd discovered their secret?
I couldn't sleep after receiving Kira's text. My mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. By morning, I'd made a decision. If Victor was playing a dangerous game, I needed protection, evidence, and leverage. Before Victor woke, I slipped out of bed and ordered tiny surveillance cameras online with rush delivery. I used my personal credit card, not our joint account. If Victor was tracking our finances, I couldn't risk him seeing the purchase. Over breakfast, I studied him. The way he avoided my eyes, the constant checking of his phone, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his collar despite the fresh shirt. He'd once been an open book to me. Now every gesture felt like a performance. "You're quiet this morning," he said, finally looking up. I shrugged. "Just thinking about a client meeting today." The lie slipped out easily. When am I learned to lie so smoothly to the man I'd promised to love forever? After Victor left, I paced our living room, staring at my phone. Meeting alone could be dangerous, but ignoring her might be worse. I texted Dakota everything, including the meeting location. "This is insane," she called immediately. "You can't go alone." "If I don't, she'll tell Victor I know." "So what? Better than ending up hurt, or worse." "I need answers, Dakota," my voice cracked. "I'll stay in public spaces. If you don't hear from me by 3 p.m., call the police." After hanging up, I created a secure folder on my phone with photos of the safe contents and Victor's notebook. Insurance, just in case.
At 1:55 p.m., I arrived at Central Park, my stomach twisted into knots. I spotted Kira immediately, impossible to miss with her confident posture and striking looks. She sat on a bench, dark sunglasses hiding her eyes, looking more like a fashion model than someone involved in whatever Victor was doing. I approached slowly, hyper-aware of every person around us. "You came," she said, removing her sunglasses. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. "I wasn't sure you would." "Who are you, and what are you doing with my husband?" A tight smile crossed her face. "Not what you think. I'm not sleeping with Victor. I saw you kiss him in my living room." "What you saw was an act. I'm an undercover investigator," she said quietly, glancing around. "I've been building a case against your husband for 8 months." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What?" "Your husband is part of a construction fraud scheme. His firm lands government contracts, cuts corners on materials, pockets the difference, and bribes inspectors to look the other way. We're talking millions of dollars and buildings that might collapse during the next big storm." I sank onto the bench beside her, suddenly unable to stand. "That's impossible. Victor wouldn't—" "Mrs. Morgan, I've seen the evidence. I've heard him plan it. I've watched him pay off officials." She leaned closer. "The cash in your floor safe? That's just a drop in the bucket." My mind raced. It explained the money, the secrecy, the burner phones, but something didn't add up. "If you're law enforcement, show me your badge." She shook her head. "I'm private sector. Insurance investigation. These companies stand to lose millions when these buildings eventually fail." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're a complication I didn't anticipate." Her eyes narrowed. "The camera was supposed to stay broken. Now you know too much, which makes you a liability to the investigation and potentially to Victor if he realizes what you've seen." A chill ran through me. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you. For your own safety, stop digging. Let me finish building this case." She handed me a business card with only a phone number. "If you find anything else, call me. Don't confront Victor." As she walked away, I sat frozen, trying to process everything. An investigator? Fraud? Buildings that might collapse? It seemed both wildly implausible and terrifyingly possible. Back home, the delivery had arrived. 3 tiny cameras I could hide throughout the house. I placed one with a view of the safe, one in Victor's home office, and kept the third in reserve. That evening, I searched Kira Devane Insurance Investigator online. Nothing. I tried variations of her name, checked professional directories, social media. The woman was a ghost. I called Dakota. "I don't like this," she said after I recounted everything. "If she were legitimate, you'd find some trace of her online." "Unless she's using an alias for undercover work," I argued, though doubt crept in. "Gabs, what if she's involved in whatever Victor is doing? What if this is their way of keeping you quiet?" The idea hit me like a physical blow. What if Kira's story was another layer of deception? That night, Victor came home earlier than usual. He seemed tense, checking the windows repeatedly, double-locking the door. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He flinched slightly. "Fine, just been a stressful day." Later, I checked the camera feeds on my phone. Victor was in his office, door closed, talking intensely on one of the burner phones. "Is becoming a problem," he was saying, his voice tight with anger. "She's asking too many questions. No, I don't think she knows anything concrete yet. Yes, I checked the safe today. Everything is still there. We might need to accelerate the timeline." My blood froze. Was he talking about me? About Kira? Someone else entirely? The next morning, I woke to find Victor already gone, a note on his pillow. "Emergency at work. Don't wait up." With shaking hands, I called the construction company. "Victor Morgan," the receptionist said. "He doesn't work here anymore. He resigned 3 weeks ago." The phone slipped from my hands. Victor had been pretending to go to a job he no longer had for 3 weeks. If he wasn't going to work, where had he been going? What had he been doing? And most terrifying of all, what would he do when he discovered I knew? My hands wouldn't stop trembling after I hung up the phone. Victor had been lying about going to a job he'd quit 3 weeks ago. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet as I tried to make sense of it all. What else had he lied about? I needed answers. Now. No more waiting, no more watching from the shadows. I texted Victor. "We need to talk. It's urgent. Coming home now." His response came quickly. "Can't today. Critical situation." "It's about the money in the floor safe," I typed back. 3 minutes passed, then 5. My phone rang. "I'll be home in 20 minutes, Victor said, his voice tight. "Don't do anything stupid, Gabrielle." The threat in those words chilled me. I called Dakota immediately. "He's coming home. I'm confronting him." "Are you insane?" Her voice rose with panic. "You said yourself there's a gun in that safe." "I'm not accusing him of anything yet, just asking questions." I tried to sound calmer than I felt. "Stay on standby. If you don't hear from me in an hour, call the police." While waiting, I checked my hidden cameras. Everything was in place. I took a deep breath and prepared for the hardest conversation of my life. Victor burst through the door 18 minutes later, his face pale with tension. He'd always been handsome, strong jawline, intelligent eyes, but now he looked like a stranger, dangerous and unpredictable. "What did you do?" he demanded without preamble. I stood my ground. "I found the safe under our rug. I saw the money. What are you involved in, Victor?" His eyes narrowed. "You went through my things?" he asked. "Answer the question. Where did that money come from? Why do you have burner phones? And why did you quit your job 3 weeks ago without telling me?" A flash of surprise crossed his face at the last question. He hadn't expected me to know that. "You've been following me?" His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I've been trying to understand who my husband is, because right now, I don't recognize you at all." Victor paced the living room, running his hands through his hair. Finally, he stopped and faced me. "It's not what you think," he said, his voice softening. "I'm doing consulting work, off the books. The firm was cutting corners on safety regulations. I threatened to report them, so they offered me a deal. Leave quietly with a severance package, plus additional payments to keep looking the other way." "You're taking bribes?" The disappointment crushed my chest. "For dangerous building practices that could hurt people?" "It's complicated, Gabrielle." He stepped toward me, his eyes pleading. "The money is for us, for our future. I was going to tell you once it was all settled." "And the woman, Kira." His face changed, hardening. "How do you know that name?" "I saw you with her here, in our living room." His expression shifted between shock, anger, and calculation, a facial journey that told me more than his words ever could. He was deciding which lie to tell. "She's a consultant, part of the arrangement. We're not—" "Don't lie to me again." I cut him off. "I saw you kiss her. I saw you give her money." His shoulders slumped slightly. "Okay, we had a thing. It didn't mean anything." I laughed bitterly. "A thing in our home with money from illegal activities?" "You don't understand what's at stake here," Victor snapped, his facade cracking. "I'm too deep in to just walk away. People are counting on me." "Who people? Your construction firm? Kira? Who exactly are you protecting?" Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something like fear flashed across his face. "I need to go," he said abruptly. "We'll finish this conversation later. Don't do anything rash, Gabrielle, for your own safety." Another threat, thinly veiled. He left before I could respond, the door slamming behind him. I collapsed on the couch, emotion battling inside me. Rage, heartbreak, fear. Victor's explanation created more questions than answers. Why would a construction firm pay him that much to stay quiet? And what did Kira have to do with any of it? My phone buzzed with a text from Dakota. "You okay? Call me." Before I could respond, another message came through from an unknown number. Need to meet again. Your husband isn't who you think he is, neither am I. Coffee shop on Main, 1 hour. Kira. Despite every instinct screaming it was a bad idea, I went. The coffee shop was crowded, witnesses everywhere. Kira sat in a corner booth looking even more polished than before in a tailored blazer that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Your husband knows you're on to him, she said without preamble. You need to be careful. Who are you really? I demanded. No more lies. She sighed, something like regret crossing her face. I told you I'm an investigator. That's true, but I'm not working for an insurance company. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. Then who? She leaned forward. The truth. Your husband isn't just taking payoffs her looking the other way on building code violations. He's actively helping launder money for people you don't want to know about. The construction fraud is just a cover for something much bigger. My blood ran cold. Who are these people? The kind that make problems disappear, including people who ask too many questions, she said quietly. As I stared at her, my phone buzzed with a text from Dakota. Found something. Kira Devane doesn't exist. The woman using that name is Catherine Diaz, ex-con, fraud specialist. Get out now. I tried not to let my expression change as I slipped my phone into my pocket. I need to go, I said abruptly. Kira or Catherine grabbed my wrist. Whatever you're thinking of doing, don't. These people won't hesitate to hurt you if they think you're a threat. Are you threatening me? I'm trying to save your life, she hissed. Walk away, forget what you've seen. I pulled my arm free and left, my mind racing. Ex-con? Fraud specialist? Every interaction with her replayed in my head, examining each word through this new lens. At home, I went straight to the living room, pulled back the rug, and entered the safe combination with shaking fingers. The door swung open to reveal nothing, completely empty. The money, the gun, the phones, the notebook, all gone. I checked my hidden camera footage. 3 hours earlier, while I was meeting with Dakota, Victor had emptied the safe, packed a bag, and left the house. He hadn't returned. My phone buzzed with another text from Dakota. Found something. Catherine Diaz worked with your husband 2 years ago at Westridge Development. They were both investigated for fraud, but never charged. They're partners, Gabrielle. They're playing you. The truth hit me like a physical blow. There was no insurance investigation, no concerned company, no secret consulting work. Victor and Kira were partners, and I was their pawn in whatever dangerous game they were playing. I sank to the floor, surrounded by lies from both sides, wondering which of them would return to silence me first.
Fear can paralyze you, or it can transform you. As I sat on my living room floor, surrounded by lies from the two people who had invaded my life, I felt something shift inside me. Fear gave way to fury. Helplessness hardened into resolve. I would not be their victim. Not anymore. First, I downloaded all my hidden camera footage to a secure cloud storage account. Then I gathered every scrap of evidence I had. Photos of the safe contents, screenshots of text messages, the business card Kira had given me. I packed an overnight bag and called Dakota. I'm coming to stay with you, I said, and tomorrow we're going to the FBI. Not the local police? Dakota asked. If Victor and Kara are involved in something big enough to have that kind of cash, they might have connections with local law enforcement. We need federal agents. That night, huddled in Dakota's guest room, we combed through everything I had collected. Dakota's background in financial compliance proved invaluable as we pieced together fragments of conversations, names from Victor's notebook, dates, amounts. These numbers are too big for simple construction fraud, Dakota murmured, tapping the screen where I'd photographed a page showing transactions of hundreds of thousands of dollars. This looks like serious money laundering. I barely slept. Every noise made me jolt awake, expecting Victor or Kara to burst through the door. By dawn, I was exhausted but determined. The FBI field office was a nondescript building downtown. I clutched my folder of evidence as we approached the front desk, my heart hammering.
I need to report a financial crime, possibly money laundering and fraud. I have evidence." The receptionist's expression didn't change as she asked us to wait. 20 minutes later, we were led to a small conference room where a woman in a dark suit introduced herself as Special Agent Rivera. "Miss Morgan, I understand you have information about potential financial crimes." I took a deep breath and told her everything. The hidden cash, the burner phones, Victor's mysterious resignation, Kira's contradicting stories, their connection at Westridge Development. I showed her the footage from my security cameras and hidden devices, the photos of the safe contents, the list of names and amounts. Agent Rivera listened without interruption, her face impossible to read. When she finished, she nodded once. "You did the right thing coming here. What you've described aligns with an ongoing investigation." My breath caught. "You already know about Victor?" "We've been tracking a sophisticated money laundering operation using construction and development companies as fronts. Your husband's name has come up in our investigation, but until now we've lacked concrete evidence connecting him directly to the operation." "And Kira? Catherine Diaz?" Agent Rivera's expression tightened. "Miss Diaz is a person of interest in several fraud cases. She typically works as what we call a facilitator, connecting criminal organizations with legitimate businesses willing to help launder funds." The truth hit me like a physical blow. My husband wasn't just taking bribes or engaging in small-time fraud. He was helping wash dirty money for criminal organizations, people who, as Carol warned, make problems disappear. "Am I in danger?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We'll arrange protection, but first we need your help." The next 48 hours passed in a blur. I stayed in a safe house while FBI agents monitored my home and phone. They needed Victor and Kara to believe I was still in the dark, still manipulatable, still a potential loose end they could control. Under the FBI's guidance, I texted Victor, "Where are you? We need to talk about what's happening. I'm scared." His response came hours later. "Don't talk to anyone. Stay home. I'll explain everything soon." A day later, my security app alerted me that someone had entered our house. The FBI surveillance confirmed it was Kira, searching methodically through my belongings. She left after an hour, apparently satisfied I wasn't gathering evidence against them. On the third day, Agent Rivera called me into their temporary command center. She explained, "We've tracked Mr. Morgan to a warehouse facility in the industrial district. Based on financial records we've subpoenaed, we believe this is where a major transaction is scheduled to take place tonight. What do you need from me?" "Your husband has been trying to reach you. We want you to agree to meet him at your house on your terms. Make it clear you're frightened but willing to listen. We'll have agents in position." My mouth dried. "You want me to be bait?" "We'll never let him get close enough to harm you," Agent Rivera promised. "But we need him to show up, preferably with documentation or evidence that could help us build our case." That evening, I sat in my living room, wired with a hidden microphone, surrounded by FBI agents disguised as neighbors, delivery people, and utility workers. My hands trembled as I waited, wondering if I was making a terrible mistake. The front door opened at 7:42 p.m. Victor stepped in, looking haggard and tense. His eyes darted around the room before settling on me. "Gabrielle," he said, his voice softening in a way I once found comforting. Now, it just sounded manipulative. "I've been worried about you." "I've been worried about me too, especially since I found out my husband has been laundering money for criminals." His face hardened. "You don't understand what you're talking about. Then explain it to me, Victor. Explain the cash, the gun, the fake identities. Explain Kira. Or should I call her Catherine?" A flash of surprise crossed his face. "You've been digging. Wouldn't you if you discovered your entire marriage was built on lies?" Victor sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. "It didn't start this way. I was just taking small payoffs to overlook code violations. But then I met people who offered real money, life-changing money, All I had to do was help move funds through the construction projects I managed. Drug money? I asked, my voice barely steady. He never asked, which was answer enough. Once you're in this system, you can't just walk away. And Catherine? What's her role in all this? Kira connects people like me to the organization. She recruited me 2 years ago at Westridge. And sleeping with her, was that part of the job description? He had the decency to look ashamed. That complicated things. It wasn't supposed to happen. What was supposed to happen to me, Victor? Once I started asking questions? His hesitation told me everything I needed to know. They don't leave loose ends, he finally said. I've been trying to protect you, convince them you're not a threat. By emptying the safe and disappearing? By buying time to get us both out. He leaned forward. I have new identities arranged, enough money to disappear. Come with me tonight, and this all goes away. My heart pounded. When? Now, tonight. A boat is waiting at the marina. We can be in international waters by dawn. I glanced toward the window. The signal. Seconds later, the front door burst open. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Victor's face transformed from pleading to rage as he was handcuffed and read his rights. As they let him out, he locked eyes with me. You don't know what you've done. They'll come for you now. Agent Rivera squeezed my shoulder. We got him, and based on what he told you, we have enough to pick up Ms. Diaz as well. The next 12 hours were a flurry of activity. Victor's arrest led agents to the warehouse where they intercepted a massive cash transfer. Catherine was apprehended at a private airfield, attempting to flee the country. In their possession were documents that implicated not just them, but dozens of others in the money laundering network. I gave my formal statement at the FBI office, exhaustion and relief washing over me in equal measure. It was over. They were caught. I was safe. Or so I thought. As I was preparing to leave, Agent Rivera approached with a troubled expression. Miss Morgan, during our search of your husband's belongings, we found something concerning. She handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Victor's handwriting. Inside was a life insurance policy taken out on me 6 months ago for $2 million. The beneficiary wasn't Victor. It was Catherine Diaz. They were planning to kill me, I whispered, the paper trembling in my hands. There's more, Agent Rivera said quietly. She placed a small flash drive on the table. This was in Miss Diaz's possession when we arrested her. It contains detailed files on you, your routines, your medical history, your family. I stared at the tiny device, horror washing over me. The policy, the surveillance, this wasn't just about silencing me if I discovered their operation, was it? No, Agent Rivera confirmed. Based on the timeline, they began planning your death before you ever knew anything was wrong. But why? I don't understand. Ms. Diaz has agreed to cooperate in exchange for consideration at sentencing. According to her, your husband needed a substantial sum to buy his way into the upper levels of the organization. They were going to stage your accidental death, collect the insurance money, and use it for his promotion within the criminal network. My world tilted. This wasn't just about hiding their crimes from me. From the very beginning, perhaps from the moment Victor met Catherine, I had been nothing more than a future payday to them both, a life to be
discarded when convenient. I had never really known my husband at all. As Agent Rivera drove me to a hotel where I would stay until testifications were complete, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. This isn't over. Some networks run deeper than you can imagine. See you soon. The text message haunted me for weeks. See you soon. 3 simple words that transformed my hotel room into a prison, my freedom into another form of captivity. I jumped at shadows, scrutinized every passing stranger, slept with the lights on when I slept at all. The FBI assured me they were monitoring all potential threats, but their reassurances felt
hollow against the weight of that promise. Some networks run deeper than you can imagine. How could anyone guarantee my safety if they didn't know how deep the corruption went? Dakota stayed with me that first week, sleeping on the pull-out couch in my hotel suite, ordering room service and making sure I wasn't alone with my thoughts for too long. "You need to eat something," she said one evening, pushing a plate toward me. I hadn't touched food all day. "I'm not hungry," I mumbled, staring out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there were people who had planned my death as casually as planning a vacation. My husband had discussed killing me over dinner, perhaps in the same restaurants where he'd once proposed, promised to love me forever. "Gabrielle," Dakota's voice cut through my thoughts, "you survived. You won. Don't let them take anything more from you." Her words pierced something inside me. I had survived. Against professionals who eliminated problems for a living, I had not only stayed alive, but helped bring them down. That hadn't been luck. It had been my instincts, my courage, my refusal to be a victim. For the first time since that text message, I felt something beyond fear, a spark of defiance. The preliminary hearing came 6 weeks after the arrests. I sat in the courtroom, back straight, eyes forward, as Victor and Catherine were led in wearing orange jumpsuits and handcuffs. Victor's gaze found mine immediately, a mixture of hatred and something that might have been regret. I didn't look away. I wanted him to see me, strong and unbroken. Catherine, by contrast, never once looked in my direction. Her cooperation had earned her some consideration, but the evidence against them both was overwhelming. They would spend decades behind bars. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I'd declined all interviews until now, but something pushed me forward. Perhaps it was seeing the smug look fade from Victor's face when the judge denied bail, or maybe it was finally time to reclaim my voice. "Mrs. Morgan, how does it feel to know your husband plotted to kill you?" The question cut through the noise, its cruelty breathtaking. I stepped up to the microphones. "My name is Gabrielle Porter," I said firmly, using my maiden name for the first time in 7 years. "And what I want people to understand is that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like the person who kisses you goodnight. Sometimes they're the ones who promise to protect you." My voice grew stronger as I continued. "Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. I ignored my intuition for months because I wanted to believe in my marriage. That almost cost my life. Have you ever ignored that little voice inside warning you something wasn't right? I bet many of you watching have. That voice is trying to protect you." In the months that followed, I dismantled the life Victor and I had built. I sold our house. I couldn't bear to sleep there, knowing what had happened within those walls. I changed my name back to Porter. I started therapy to process the trauma of having loved someone who had planned my murder. The hardest part wasn't the logistics of rebuilding. It was learning to trust again, not just others, but myself. For years, I doubted my perceptions, dismissed my concerns, rationalized away the distance growing between Victor and I. I had participated in my own gaslighting. "You're too hard on yourself," my therapist told me during one particularly difficult session. "Master manipulators succeed because they're good at what they do, not because their victims are foolish." Slowly, I began to heal. I moved into a small apartment downtown, resumed my event planning business, and started volunteering at a women's shelter, sharing my story with others trying to rebuild their lives after betrayal. 8 months after the arrests, Agent Rivera called me with an update. "We've followed the financial trail from your husband's operation. It led to several high-ranking officials and business leaders. There have been more arrests. Any threats I should know about? I asked, my stomach tightening. Nothing specific, but we'll continue monitoring. The organization has been significantly disrupted. Disrupted, but not destroyed. I knew enough about criminal networks to understand they were like hydras. Cut off one head, and two more grow back. Someone, somewhere, had lost money and power because of me. The thought still kept me awake some nights. But I refused to live in fear forever. I installed the best security system available in my new apartment. I took self-defense classes. I checked in regularly with Dakota and other friends, ensuring someone always knew where I was. Most importantly, I started listening to myself again. That quiet inner voice that had tried to warn me about Victor, I gave it space to speak, and I promised never to silence it again. 1 year to the day after I'd first seen Victor and Catherine on my security camera, I sat with Dakota at our favorite coffee shop, celebrating a small victory, my first full week without nightmares. "I'm proud of you," Dakota said, raising her mug in a toast. "You've come so far." "I had help," I replied, thinking of her unwavering support, my therapist's guidance, the FBI agents who'd protected me, the community of survivors who'd welcomed me. "True," she agreed, "but you did the hardest parts alone. You faced Victor in that living room not knowing if you'd walk out alive. You chose to fight rather than run." As we talked, I noticed a man at a nearby table glancing our way repeatedly. My body tensed, old fears surfacing instantly. He looked vaguely familiar, though I couldn't place him. When Dakota went to the restroom, he approached.
"Miss Porter, I'm sorry to interrupt." My hand moved to my purse where I kept pepper spray. "Do I know you?" "No, ma'am, I'm Detective Holloway." He showed me his badge. "I worked tangentially on your case last year." I relaxed slightly. "What can I do for you, Detective?" "I wanted to let you know, off the record, that we've been monitoring chatter about the organization your husband worked for. There's been a significant power struggle since the arrests. The faction that lost money because of you has been," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "neutralized by rival interests." "Meaning?" "Meaning the people who might have wished you harm are no longer in positions to act on those wishes." Relief washed over me. Not complete safety. I'd never feel that again, but a loosening of the constant vigilance I'd maintained. "Thank you for telling me," I said softly. He nodded and turned to leave, then hesitated. "The way you handled yourself throughout the investigation, it was remarkable. Most people would have crumbled under that kind of betrayal." His words stayed with me long after he left. Most people would have crumbled, but I hadn't. The woman Victor had married, the one he thought would be an easy victim, no longer existed. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, unwilling to be anyone's prey. Have you ever discovered strength inside yourself that you never knew existed until you had no choice but to be strong? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories of resilience. That night, I stood on my apartment balcony looking out at the city lights. The same view that once filled me with dread now seemed full of possibility. I thought about everything I'd lost: my marriage, my home, my sense of safety,
and everything I'd gained. Self-reliance, true friendship, a deeper understanding of my own resilience. I thought about Victor, sitting in his cell, and Catherine in hers, and all the powerful people who'd fallen with them. I'd been collateral damage in their scheme, an inconvenient life to be erased for profit. They underestimated me so completely, never imagining I would be their downfall. Their mistake. Their final mistake. As I turned to go inside, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My heart stuttered as I opened it, half expecting another threat. Instead, I saw an image. A photograph of me standing on my balcony, clearly taken moments ago from somewhere nearby. Beneath it, 2 words. Well done. 6 months after receiving that chilling photograph and message, my life had transformed again. I'd moved from Charlotte to Seattle, a fresh start in a city where no one knew my story. My event planning business was thriving with a new focus on corporate clients. I'd started dating again, cautiously, selectively, listening to my instincts with every interaction. That mysterious "well done" text haunted me for weeks until I finally brought it to Agent Rivera. The FBI traced it to a burner phone purchased with cash, found discarded in a trash can 3 blocks from my apartment. The surveillance footage from nearby businesses showed only a hooded figure they couldn't identify. Another dead end. It could be someone from a rival organization, Rivera suggested, someone who benefited from the network's collapse. I wasn't convinced. The message felt personal, almost congratulatory, not threatening. But who else could have been watching me? Today marks the 2-year anniversary of the night I first saw Victor and Catherine on my security camera. 2 years since the unraveling of my marriage and the life I thought I had. I've come to the coffee shop where Dakota and I celebrated my first week without nightmares, a small tradition I maintain even though she's thousands of miles away now. As I sip my latte, my phone buzzes with her video call. "Happy Independence Day," she says when I answer, a private joke between us for this anniversary. "How's New York?" I ask, smiling at her image on my screen. "Loud, expensive, perfect. How are you holding up today?" "I'm good, actually. Really good." And I mean it. The fear no longer controls me. The betrayal no longer defines me. "Any mysterious texts lately?" she asks, half joking, half serious. "Not since—" I stop, distracted by someone entering the coffee shop. A woman with familiar, elegant posture, her back to me as she orders at the counter. "Gabs, you okay?" "I think I just saw—" I shake my head. "Never mind. Happens sometimes. I see strangers who remind me of them." We chat for a few more minutes before Dakota has to run to a meeting. I'm about to leave when the woman I noticed turns around, coffee in hand, and walks directly to my table. My breath catches. Not Catherine. This woman is older, with streaks of silver in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that speak of both laughter and hardship, but the resemblance is striking. "Miss Porter?" she says, her voice carrying a subtle accent I can't place. "May I join you for a moment?" Every instinct screams caution, but curiosity wins. I gesture to the empty chair across from me, subtly positioning my phone to record our interaction. "You don't know me, but I know a great deal about you. My name is Elena Diaz." "Diaz," I repeat, my mouth going dry. "Any relation to Catherine?" A tight smile crosses her face. "My daughter, though I haven't used that name in many years." My body tenses, ready to flee, but she raises a hand. "I'm not here to threaten you. Quite the opposite." Why should I believe anything a Diaz tells me? The words come out sharper than I intended. Elena's eyes, so like her daughter's, hold mine steadily. "Because I'm the one who sent you the text. Well done. And I'm the reason you're still alive. The coffee shop seems to fade around us as she continues. Catherine was not always what she became. There was a time when she was just my little girl. But her father's business, let's say we were part of a world that consumes those who aren't strong enough to resist it. What does this have to do with me? I demand. Everything. Elena leans forward. When I discovered Catherine was following in her father's footsteps, I began tracking her activities. I wanted to pull her out before she went too deep, but I was too late. By the time I found her, she was already working with your husband on a scheme that included your murder. My pulse quickens. So you warned the FBI? A small shake of her head. I couldn't approach authorities without exposing myself. Instead, I arranged for your living room camera to malfunction and then made sure the repair technician came when Victor wasn't home. The revelation hits me like a physical blow. You set up the camera discovery? You wanted me to see them together? I needed you to see the truth before it was too late. I couldn't warn you directly. They would have known someone leaked information. This way, you discovered everything yourself. The text I received after the hearing, "This isn't over. See you soon." Was that you too? Pain flashes across her face. No, that was my daughter. Even from prison, she has connections. That's why I've been watching over you, making sure those threats remained empty. I struggle to process this new reality. Elena Diaz, the mother of the woman who helped plan my murder, had been my unseen guardian all along? Why? I finally asked. Why protect me? Elena stands, gathering her belongings. Because I failed to save my daughter from that world, but I could still save you. She places a small flash drive on the table. Everything's here. Names, accounts, connections that even the FBI hasn't uncovered. My final gift to you. True freedom from fear. As she turns to leave, she pauses. Your camera didn't break accidentally, Gabrielle. I arranged it. And I arranged for it to be fixed without your husband knowing. Sometimes we need to see with our own eyes to truly believe. She walks away, disappearing into the crowd outside before I can respond. I stare at the flash drive, understanding flooding through me. My entire journey, from discovery to survival to freedom, began with someone I never knew existed making a choice to save a stranger when she couldn't save her own child. Have you ever wondered if someone was watching over you during your darkest moments? Someone you never even knew was there? I don't know if I'll ever see Elena Diaz again. I don't know what secrets the flash drive contains or what I'll do with that information. But I know this. Sometimes our greatest allies remain in the shadows, and sometimes the path to finding our strength begins with someone else believing we have it within us. My story began with a broken camera that wasn't really broken. It continues with each day I choose courage over fear, truth over comfort, moving forward over looking back. What hidden cameras are revealing truths in your life right now? What are they showing you that you've been afraid to see? Sometimes, like me, you might discover that seeing the truth, no matter how painful, is the first step to saving yourself. And sometimes, just sometimes, you're not fighting alone.